Auzubillahiminash-shaytanir-rajeem. Bismillahir-rahmanir-rahim. Assalamu-alaikum. Ji ayanu pakhair agale ni hao chune shumme washmale. Ohio Gonzaimas. Guten Morgen. Hola. Bonjour. Privyet. Kaifa hal? Hale shuman chatore. Ahlan wa sahlan. Marhaba. Buna. Mucho gracias. Swabia. Bhalli kare aya. Hosh galdin. Anayo sayo. Khuyamora. Chi vato. Chi hal yud. Kalimera. And a very warm welcome to everybody who's tuned into PTV World and watching World this morning. Alongside my very well-learned colleague who happens to be Miss Hajar Satti. I happen to be Shahzad Hassan Khan, and we hope and pray that everybody's loving a sunny morning over here on a Wednesday in Islamabad. Well, it was hot today, to be very honest, because I live on the upper portion. Okay. And today, when I was getting ready, I could feel as if it was hot, and I certainly wanted some cool, fresh air. And today, there are 30% chances of rain as well, which I hope and pray that it's going to turn into 100%. Please Allah Miya hamari duaon ko kabool and manzoor farmaye. But first things first. Hello Hajra, assalamu alaikum. How are you feeling today?
Walaikum assalam. Thank you so much for introducing me. Jazakallah khair. Certainly there is a rain prediction today, and we hope that the rain gets in, because you can feel the humidity, certain level of humidity in the air, and you can certainly feel that the monsoon is on its way. But we are going to see how the day rolls out, and obviously being a resident of Islamabad, having the rain shower is nothing that you could ask more from Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, because it gives us such a good vibe, such a pleasant and a green vibe to Islamabad. But my very well-learned co-host here shared very nice research about the cacti plants, and there is some innovation going on. So Shahzad, why don't you take the lead and share a very interesting story that you
Obviously,
shared.
so imagine Hajar, just because of the fact that we are so used to of leather products, made be ladies' handbags or made be our car Porsche as well, the car seats, so everything kind of revolves around leather, and it gives us a very luxury feeling that, hey, you know what, that this is pure leather that we have bought for ourselves. But what we do not understand most often, just because of the fact that we are so inclined towards, getting all of those luxuries which actually include leather into it, that a lot of animals actually had to lose their life just because of the fact that they are going to provide us with their hides. Now, what happened was that there are
and there's also certain edgy and very posh and sophisticated touch to the leather products, right? For example, men wear a lot of leather belts and leather shoes and leather briefcase. And same goes for the women also, with the leather handbags and leather shoes, obviously, for the women. It is all true, but for those people who want the very edgy and sophisticated look, yet they do not want to engulf themselves into this animal cruelty of the leathers, because like Shahzad mentioned, that animals have to be killed in order to obtain their skin, and it's a very hideous process, very cruelsome process. So there's a very nice option which Shahzad is going to
Exactly, and that is that there are two brothers, and they've actually came up with a very innovative idea, and what they've done is that they've replaced, the hide leather from cactus leather. So imagine that this cactus plant can actually provide us leather, and they have gone through a vigorous setup and innovation process to kind of make sure that eventually that the world will see cactus leather now. So imagine you walking into a shop, earlier there were questions, or is it crocodile leather, or probably is it, cow leather, or, stuff like that. But ladies and gentlemen, I think that these two gentlemen have actually solved the problem. And the best part over here, Hajra, is that, what they're trying to ask is that whether people are going to use this leather or not. And that's something which I am going to ask other people as well who are right in front of me, who are watching us on their television screens, whether you are ready to use cactus leather or not. And the best part is that it's not going to pinch you no matter what.
Right, so because cactus is a plant that does not consume a lot of water, so it's known as the desert plant, and the company which is doing is called actually the Deserto, and you can see these two brothers on the screen which are actually making these leather plants. So before this cacti leather, we had the option of leather or rexine, we can simply say, because it is made of the petroleum based products, based garments, and that contributes a lot in terms of the earth pollution and obviously unsustainable models that we have seen. But this will be a game changer, because we are going to harvest a lot of cacti, and they're actually Mexican born brothers, and in Mexico they do have this sort of a desert climate, because and the cactus can be harvested there, and there's a lot of cactus. So you can see in the background that there's a lot of cacti here, and they're converting it into the leather and making sure that they're used in the products, which is animal cruelty free and more sustainable to the environment. And Shahzad and I have been talking a lot about the sustainability and how we need to make sure that our future generations, our coming generations are there, which can live in a very habitable planet Earth, and we do not degrade it to such an extent that you can't reverse the changes, right? For example, in terms of climate conditions or climate change and all of this stuff. So the cactus which is used is called nopal cactus, Shahzad, and it is being converted into the leather, and it is also very interestingly being called vegan leather. I don't know why it's called vegan leather, because it's made
it comes from cactus probably, and the name of the two brothers happens to be Adrian Lopez and Marte Cazares.
Vegan is a name which is usually associated with the vegetables, right? So I don't imagine a cactus to be a vegetable which we can eat in the first place.
No, I think it might be because of the fact that, you know, that they might have thought about it as a marketing strategy, that they would want to market it as vegan leather. A lot of people have gone vegan. Everybody loves vegetables these days, and they're like, okay, hey, you know what, we are saving a lot of animal lives out there, so why not purchase products which are made up of cactus leather.
Yes. So Shahzad, it is also the 7th of June. It's Wednesday today, and 7th of June is usually observed as the World Food Safety Day. And why we need to observe this World Food Safety Day? Because I think it might have happened in our lives. It has happened with me a lot that we might eat something that causes us a diarrhea or food poisoning in the first place. And why? Because the food safety standards are not very vigorous, and especially we can see like that the milk is being spilled in.
Yes,
yes. So theme of the World Food Safety Day is food standards saves the life, and which is to raise the awareness. And I think in Pakistan we need to work on this a lot, right?
Exactly. In Pakistan, Haja, you very rightfully mentioned, you've hit the nail on the head that we certainly require it. And imagine that 600 million people all over the globe fall ill just because of the fact that they had contaminated food. And out of 600 million, 420,000 people die every year because of their wrong intake, because the food wasn't hygienic. Imagine people I mean, I certainly do not want to go where I was about to go. Imagine what happened in Lahore, you know, what things were sold in the name of a goat or probably a cow as well. So I think people really need to make sure, the government really needs to ensure that all of these restaurants which are out there, you know, because with Food Panda and all of these delivery systems, there's no checkup, you know. So imagine that if I have to order something, I'm certainly not sure whether whatever product that Food Panda rider is going to bring to me, whether it's hygienic or not, whether they wash their hands or not. Imagine, you know, so he's picking up the order, he's putting it in his bike, he's all the time on his bike, whether it's clean or not, clean drinking water. So ladies and gentlemen, I think it's a shared responsibility, and we need to make sure that we enforce all of those standards which will ensure the hygiene of the food we consume.
And Shahzad, you might have noticed that there were a lot of news reports back in the days, because there were very rigorous checking, especially going on by the Food Safety Department in Pakistan, and where they have uncovered how very unhealthy milk was being sold. It was covered in all of sort of dirt, and it was placed in the open containers, and there was a lot of dirt which was coming on, and how it was being supplied to all of these corporate giants, and they were making sure that we consume that, all in the name of marketing them in a very sort of very friendly jargons by using omega friendly, omega 3, it contains calcium and vitamin and whatnot, right? So it's extremely dangerous, and make sure that you have a thorough check of what you are consuming before you actually eat it, because aroma seems to be very enticing, but the next story.
No, but we might have been doing it intentionally as well, because I still remember, you know, back in the days, you know, we used to get those papads from Papad Wala, you know, so no cover whatsoever on the papad, and you know, it's a street vendor, you go out there, you're eating papad, the next day your dad's taking you to a doctor. Then, you know, there was the Buddha Jawan Churan, you know, so imagine, you know, as kids we have eaten so many things. Then there was this cotton candy, you never know what they're putting inside it as well. So ladies and gentlemen, please make sure that on this World Food Safety Day, make sure that you're having hygienic food, which is nutrition, full of nutrition, which is going to make you better, healthier, and live longer as well. But very quickly, moving on towards the top stories. Haja, why don't you take the lead?
Okay, so Prime Minister Shehbaz Sharif has called the National Economic Council meeting in Islamabad. Since it's June, it's the month of the budgetary month of the fiscal year of Pakistan. After the meeting, talking to Media Minister for Planning, Development and Special Initiatives, Ehsan Iqbal said the total national outlay will be of 207,009 billion rupees, which contains the development budget of Punjab and Khyber Pakhtunkhwa for only 4 months due to caretaker setup in the province. but if the full budget is included in the ADP, it will exceed the figure of 3 trillion rupees. And so obviously there are a lot of expectations from the government, because it is going to be a new parliamentary or the fiscal budget which is going to come here, and certainly we expect that the government is going to provide the relief, and we are pretty sure that the government is going to do that.
And that's me being really honest, Haja, because you know I do believe that under the leadership of the Premier Mia Mohammad Shahbaz Sharif Saab, they will certainly give aid to the people who certainly require it at this point of time as well. But very quickly, moving on to my favorite sport, which happens to be cricket. And my favorite cricketer, ladies and gentlemen, not just mine, the world over, Babar Azam is loved by everybody. But the International Cricket Council, ICC, announced Babar Azam, the captain of Pakistan's cricket team, is one of the nominees for the prestigious ICC Player of the Month award. If successful, Babar will become the first player to win the ICC Men's Player of the Month award on 3 separate occasions, April 2021 and March 2022. Babar Azam, all the best. And so imagine that if we are to kind of speak about Cricket World Cup, which will be taking place in India, ladies and gentlemen, the best part is that if we take a good look at the Cricket World Cup Super League, Babar Azam happens to be the top scorer.
Wonderful.
And Babar Azam, no matter what, wherever he goes, ladies and gentlemen, make sure that he's going to speak only with his bat, not with his mouth.
And I think he's been visiting the Harvard and making some very bright, ways on the media, and especially on the social media, about how he was being honored there. And obviously, getting into the Harvard is such an honor in itself. But talking about sports, the first thing that comes into mind is the fitness, right? Because a lot of, especially the students or the kids who are involved in the sports, do it out of their fitness regime or whatnot. But Shahzad is very fitness enthusiast, and we have been watching him on the social media because he keeps updating it. And I think this is the pattern that we need to instill in our kids, and we need to teach them through our own example rather than just saying that through the words. But obviously, Shahzad, what is your day in your life when you minus the gym or subtract gym out of there? So how do you feel about it?
I mean, I think that my day is actually planned around gym, so that's how I am, because that's my happy time, that's my time.
Wonderful.
Imagine you kind of bench pressing 100 kgs, you certainly won't remember about anything else, what's happening around you. You'll only focus on doing that. And since I'm following the Arnold's regime these days as well, it's just the 15-second break and you have to go back to your exercise no matter what until you are unable to do it. But ladies and gentlemen, just like yesterday, because we spoke about summer camps, whether they're important or not, and it's summer vacations. So this specific segment will be for mothers who are at home, it's summer vacation, they're looking after kids, but they never get a chance to go to the gym. And the most common problem over here is of fat loss, so no matter how much muscle you build, if it's going to be still under that fat which you already have, and if you're not going to burn it, there's not going to be any change in your physical appearance or your fitness. And people certainly want that. If we talk about, this very staunch belly fat, it stays there forever. I still ask my mummy, why did you always ask me to finish whatever I put in my plate? You should have let me or allowed me to eat as much as I wanted, and then I could eat the rest later. So this is, अम्मियाँ ये करती नहीं, बेटा जो खाया डाला है प्लेट में वो खत्म करो. तो खत्म करने के चक्कर में हमारे पेट थोड़े बाहर हैं, अल्हम्दुलिल्लाह पंजाबियों के होते भी हैं. But not just that. I think what we certainly need to talk about is, the calorie intake, how to make sure that if we are intermittent fasting or we are into intermittent fasting, if it's going to be useful, if you're losing fat, do you think that there are going to be other skin issues related to that as well? So for all of those mothers, what can you do while at home or while at the gym is something we will get you asked. Or probably the best part is that, that we have been joined by an international trainer. She's been training for the last 8 years. She claims that she's going to have the biggest gym ever in Islamabad, inshallah, and we are all praised. She's a young, vibrant youngster of Pakistan who actually wants to change the fitness industry. We're very lucky that we've been joined by a fitness trainer herself, Miss Amna Khan. Hello, assalamu alaikum, good morning. How are you, Amna?
Good morning, I'm very good. How are you?
Thank you so much for joining us. Wonderful to have you over here. And it's lovely to talk about fat loss, because fat loss journeys are not easy. People have to put themselves into pain. What is the easiest solution with you, which you can share with our audiences in 47 different countries to lose fat? Let's start.
To lose fat, just join gym or work out at home for like only 20 minutes. Start with 10 minutes or 20 minutes in a day. Just get active. Go for running, go for walk, go for brisk walking, go for sprinting. Sprinting will release serotonin from your mind and you will feel ultimately very happy. If you
go ahead.
If you feel happy doing something, you will be doing it daily, right? So this is my biggest tip for you, is start step by step, like 10 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes and do it.
But now we see that there are a lot of women who do not have the access to the safe spaces, or they do not have the time to go to gyms because they are so engulfed in their domestic chores and they do not have time. So what sort of fitness regime for you recommends, especially for the new mothers out there, because obviously when you give birth you do accumulate some of the fat and your body does go a lot of changes in that very natural process.
For the housewives and mothers, I recommend high intense interval training and circuit training. These two trainings were specially designed for the women only,
Right.
where they can burn more calories in less time. For example, if you are doing high intense interval training, you can burn like 1000 calories in 10 minutes. And if you are going
And
for
what
a walk,
exactly is that?
1,000 calories in 10 minutes is really difficult, for anybody to burn. I think, because what I know is that if I cycle for 15 minutes, I do 9 or 10 kilometers, and I really have to kind of make sure that, I'm paddling quicker, and the intensity level is at 5 or 6. I only burn somewhat around 151 or 160 calories in those 15 minutes, which is quite a lot. But in 10 minutes, 1,000 calories seems impossible. Does that really happen?
yeah, that happens. This is the thing that I as a certified fitness trainer know how you can burn in less time. For example, if you're doing compound exercises, you are doing full body exercises, and people only think that they can do high intense interval training in cardio.
Yeah.
Why you don't go for body weight training?
True.
Why you don't go with the dumbbells, kettlebells, heavy weight lifting, compound exercises? For example, if you take 5 full body compound exercises, deadlifts, heavy, I'm talking about lifting heavy weights,
Yeah.
and then you can go for chest press, then you can go for
Squats.
squats, bicep curls, and that you can combine the training and then you can burn it easily.
But you should be able to do it now. Imagine that, if there are people out there who have backaches and issues with their back, they
Yes.
cannot do deadlifts, they cannot do squats. And most of the times, mothers, if we are to speak of
Yes.
them, after their pregnancy, usually they do have those backache issues and other problems because
Yes.
they have not been active their entire life. Now, imagine all of a sudden, they have pressure from their husband or whatsoever, or they think that they need to look better. They're not that fit. So what is a starter pack with you? So let's get started with the starter pack that, okay, if you're at home, you're watching our show today, what can you do?
The starter pack is to start with the Kegel exercises.
Okay.
It will strengthen their pelvic. Whenever the woman gives birth to the baby, the pelvic gets weakened.
True.
Or if you have cesarean, it gets weakened. Other organs also are affected by it, but the main thing is pelvic floor exercises I recommend, like glute bridges, like planks. These are one of the amazing exercises which are for your full body, and they will develop your stamina, endurance. So you will be able to recover as well as train and have the stamina to train further.
Wow,
But
that's
I
wonderful.
also recommend being very patient and being very careful after your postnatal
Yeah,
weight.
and that's something which I would recommend as well. Obviously, people have to be very careful, and which is why you certainly need a trainer. So imagine that, Hajat, in my life, the first 4 or 5 years that I was going to the gym, I never had a trainer and never felt the importance of a trainer until I had to go and get my back surgery
Okay,
done. So
okay.
after that, having a trainer was something which was necessary. Obviously, you can learn from YouTube, but while you're exercising, at
Yes.
times the weight is too much that you cannot maintain the
Maybe
rightful
you are
posture.
putting a lot of pressure on
Yeah, and-
yourself and exerting a lot in order to look better,
True.
right? So
No, and then, so what happens is just in order to lift the weight, you
Right.
kind of mess up with your form,
Okay,
which is why,
okay.
God forbid, you end up injuring yourself. Now,
Right.
let's understand the science behind it. Let's understand that
Sure.
the food intake we take
Yes,
in,
yes.
without, so for example, we're not working out now,
Yes.
so we're eating chapatis and parathas and whatnot,
Yes.
and we're contributing to the fat deposits in our body.
Yes.
How do you think that what do you think we need to kind of make sure that, okay, that these dietary habits need to change in order to lose your fat? So exercise, one component, obviously. Number 2, diet, because they say 70% is your diet and 30% is your exercise.
and then how
Yeah.
much calories we need to burn in a day?
Shazad, you're missing one thing here. 10% is recovery that people don't know.
True.
If you are doing exercise, you need recovery.
Yeah.
Where
You need
is
to
the
sleep 8
sleep?
hours at least.
Yeah, where is the sleep? It is the most important part in the fat loss or weight loss or whatever fitness regime you are following or trying to fulfill your goal. Sleep is very important for
True.
it. So,
So,
don't miss the
when-
10% recovery.
Okay, sleep obviously is very important,
Yes.
but let's talk about the dietary
Calories,
changes that
yes.
we really need to make.
Sure.
So imagine, if we are exercising now and if we are going to continue to eat parathas and rotis, eventually that intake is going to increase as well
Yes.
because now you're working out. So what tips will you give to people out there or to the mothers that, okay, if you've started to work out now, you really need to make sure that you eat healthy, but in lesser amounts?
I would recommend healthy eating, which is a balanced diet. You
Yep.
will be taking protein, you will be taking carbs, and you will be taking fats and fiber. These
True.
4 things are very necessary. You cannot miss vegetables, which will be coming from fibers.
The greens.
Yes, the greens, it's very important for your digestion.
Yes.
You know, some people, whenever they go on diet or start with the gym, they have constipation or they get
Yes.
fever or flu, right?
True.
Yes.
So it is directly related to their fiber intake.
Okay.
So, and protein, if you are taking enough protein, you can recover well, go for the exercise, you don't have pain in your muscles. So
How many grams of protein do you think women require in a day?
your body weight multiplies by 2 or 1.5. For general population, I recommend 1.2,
Okay.
and for the athletes, I recommend 1.8.
And
Grams.
how much
Yeah.
calories we need to burn in a day? I mean, generally.
It depends
More
on
than you
your
consume.
yeah, more than you consume for fat loss.
Yeah.
It's
That's
like
too
a
much pressure, no?
yeah, it's like a balance. You consume less and you burn more. Then you
Yeah.
go for the fat loss. And for
Okay.
the weight gain, you consume more and burn less, but staying active and building
Yes.
the muscle.
Exactly. And in addition to that, I would, and you can second me if I'm correct, and that is
Sure.
that my research, what it tells me is that, men actually require 2,500 calories a day.
Okay.
So imagine if you consume 2,500 calories.
And is it a particular age group? I mean, so is it
I
same
mean,
for
it
the
depends.
kids
Obviously,
or
it varies. If you're an
Yes.
athlete, obviously the calorie intake will
Yes.
be more because they burn more as well. So imagine that, for an ordinary,
Right.
person who's in 30 to 40
Maybe
years
office goer, yeah.
of age gap,
Yes.
is office going, all you
Yes.
need to do is that if you're consuming 2,500 calories, make sure
Right.
that you at least burn 1,000 calories as well.
Okay.
Or 700 or 800, so that you're always in a calorie deficit. Once you
Right.
put your body into a calorie deficit, that's the time when you will actually experience the real fat loss.
Right.
And then once you start to lose fat, that should be the time when you start to build muscle. Now, okay, calorie intake, the calorie needs to be in deficit in order to lose your fat. How do you think that now we start to build back lean muscle?
For the lean muscle, you need to do some body weight exercises or resistance based exercises.
Okay.
Your body should be resisting against the gravity,
Yeah.
So that includes strength training or push-ups, pull-ups.
Putting your muscles into a
Yeah.
shock.
Yeah. Or
That's-
burning them.
yeah.
Basically, it's hypertrophy you're doing.
True.
Atrophy is the declining of muscles and hypertrophy is the gaining of the muscles.
Exactly.
So you need to do any sort of exercises which include strength training.
Wonderful.
It could be from your body, which is resisting against the earth, or it could be weights. Body is resisting
Exactly.
against the weights. So
Right.
you can build muscle, but be very sure about your protein intake. And everybody has their BMI, BMR different.
Yeah.
So you need to take your calories and protein intake according to that. For example, if Shahzad has a BMR of like 2,500 calories in a day, you won't be having that same.
Yes, that's true.
So you need to
With
calculate
women,
it.
it's usually lesser. It's 2,000.
Yeah.
That's what they say.
Okay.
With men, if it's 2,500. With women, it's 2,000. It obviously varies age, where you live, what
Yeah.
you eat, what you
Yes.
consume. So there are a lot of
Environmental
variables attached to this as well. And when we speak of fat loss, when we speak of building back muscle, and when we speak of resistance, what are those resistance exercises which mothers can do? One, obviously you pick up your babies, do squats at home. I think that's something which I used to do in COVID days. So imagine I would
Really?
make my baby sit on my shoulders,
Okay.
hold her hands and legs, and then go for squats. And she would be all happy. She would be like, okay, daddy's giving me a swing. So what resistance exercises can women do at home?
Basic exercises. Start with the basic exercises. Push-ups is one of
Push-ups,
the
yes.
main best. This is the
Chin-ups.
basic. For the women, I think it won't be
But
easy.
they really need to kind of make sure that they have that ability, they have that strength, because if you're working out and if you do not have a strength to do one pull-up, imagine you certainly do not have any strength then.
Oh my God, Shahzad, this is too
Yeah,
much
but you
pressure,
can
no?
do wall push-ups, right?
Yeah. Wall
to
push-ups, anybody
develop
can do.
the strength of pulling up.
Yeah.
It took me 5 years to do pull-ups. It's not that easy.
True.
So you need to practice before. So
Exactly.
I recommend push-ups, squats, deep squatting. Then I recommend the Kegel exercises for women, especially planks is one of the best exercises. These are very easy, common exercises that they can do at home. Plus, I would like to tell this thing that squatting helps in normal delivery.
Yeah.
It
Oh,
can,
wonderful.
yeah, it can make you avoid the C-section delivery. It is a very common thing which women need to be addressed about.
But Abna, Shahzad alluded to something very important starting, and he talked about there are a lot of nowadays fat loss dietary regimes like the ketos, like intermittent fasting. So do you think that these are the best way to go when it comes to the fat reduction or the fat loss? Or I do feel that there are a lot of marketing companies that are stepping in, giving you a plans, but a lot of people complain about the keto diet is not working on it. So what's wrong in that, or what
They're
are
lying.
people?
They're lying because what happens is
They
that
eat
they
too much.
order their keto food.
Okay.
So once the keto food is here, they would have half of it. And what they would do is that, if their kids are having chips or French fries or whatsoever, they're going to actually munch on that as well. So when you diet, you really need to be strict with it. You cannot go haywire or yaar main aaj cheat day kar leta. No cheat days. You really need to be focused, achieve your goal, and then maintain. Please,
Is that
your
true,
take.
Amna?
No, that's not true. I would like to highlight what Shehzad said, that they would eat some chunk of it and then they would eat from their normal diet. It's not that. If somebody is ordering ketogenic food and they are giving heavy amount of money to that person, and they're not going to waste that if somebody is very serious about being there.
Only if they're very serious, yes.
Yeah. So what's the problem here is that these are not long-term diets.
Okay.
I have been on a healthy eating diet since 7 years.
And what is your healthy eating diet?
It is balanced diet, having protein, carbs, fibers, and
Micronutrients.
yeah, all the micronutrients. You cannot continue with such diets. For example, ketogenic diet, where you can you are reducing your carbs intake, right? So how long can you go for it? Maybe 3 months, 4 months. This is the reason why a lot of people get failed into this. Plus, it has, if you Google, it has very adverse effects on your organs. You are weakening your joints if you are cutting so many carbs, or if you are eating in a window, you're making your joints weak. What about your hair? What about your nails? What about your skin?
But never Google.
Yeah.
But please don't Google, because then Google will actually tell you something which you won't be able to absorb. Please make sure that you go to people like Amna or nutritionists or doctors and ask them for the rightful manner of doing your diet as well, because it needs to be healthier. So imagine that, what I was doing was earlier, because I have 3 lovely daughters, alhamdulillah. So one comes in, she's munching on chips. One comes in, she's munching on milkoloo. They like licking cookies and whatnot. And then I would
feel like
eventually
I should
end up
also
having 1 or 2 as well, right? So what I did was that I've actually kind of changed my munching habits from cookies and chips to cashew nuts, almonds, making sure that, I'm going to get the best diet for my body, because that's the place you're going to live in. So I'm going to recommend people to kind of just look for alternates, and there are very healthy alternates which are available outside as well. And you're very rightful that, that those keto diets aren't really sustainable. You keep on
I
ordering
highly
them.
don't recommend them at all.
You don't recommend that, and I do not certainly recommend that. Only if it's sustainable, I would certainly recommend it as well, because there are a lot of greens, proteins, and then some days they'll give you some carbs as well. But thank you so much, Amna, for being with us. Lovely to be in conversation with such a youngster of Pakistan who actually wants to transform the fitness industry and has so much knowledge about how you can really transform your body. People, if you're out there and if you want to get in touch with Amna, she has her Instagram page with the name of Amna Khan Community, Fitness Community. So please make sure that you get in touch. And for every person who's going to take sessions from her, she only does live sessions these days. They'll get 10% discount, if they're going to mention World this morning, all right? That's a surprise for her. Yeah, that's a yes, all right? So with that, ladies and gentlemen, we're actually heading out towards a short break. But once you guys will come back, so the next segment is actually in relation with what we were talking about. So imagine that, why do you think that all of those youngsters who make these amazing goals within their own heads actually lose focus, and then they're never able to achieve those goals? Let's talk about that after a short break. A very good
morning. Welcome back, and before going on to the break, Shehzad added to something very nice and interesting, and which will be the part of the conversation that we are now going to have in a second segment, which is related to why it is important to have goals in your life, and especially for the young people out there, because there's a lot of focus on making goals and staying true to your mission and making sure that you have a more meaningful life out there. And certainly we have seen that there are a lot of life coaching, which is a huge billion-dollar industry out there. There's a lot of literature that is coming out there, which is making sure that you need to have
people
goals.
Like Sean Tate.
Yes, and Jordan Peterson also, and how to make sure that how do you identify your goals, because a lot of people do not have goals, or they realize their goal when they feel that they have lived their life and it's not very much meaningful life that they have lived. So how to identify your goal in the first place, and then how to make sure that your values are consistent with that goal, so you are able to achieve that. So in order to to kickstart our topic, we are very glad that we have been joined by a very dear guest of ours who happens to be a public speaker and is also an educator and lecturer. So he happens to be Asif Rasool. Assalamu alaikum and thank you so much for coming to our show.
Thank you very much.
So it's wonderful to have you over here. Thank you so much once again, because sir happens to be my professor and every now and then I actually invite him to discuss about several issues we have in our lives. So Haja, go ahead please.
Okay, so why is it important to have goals in your life and how can you identify a goal in your life, especially when you are a student, when you don't know much about the life and you may be young and this very hot, I would say, blood boiling inside you. So how do you make sure that you identify a goal in that point of your life?
And why goals?
Yes.
Yes, this is very important because we can see if we go toward a shooting site, so we can see that there's a very clear identification of there,
Targets.
like if you've got to how to shoot properly, and then there is a specific goal. So just imagine if this target is not there. So obviously,
that's a good alternative.
So we certainly do not have any goals. So imagine that we can actually aim anywhere and be like, Haji. Hello, ji.
Yes, and it's more easier, no? Because you can, shoot anywhere you want, and then you don't feel bad if you miss that target. Oh my God!
But I condemn it. It's very dangerous, ladies and gentlemen. Please never do that. For all of those people who've actually been involved in, fighting in the air, please never do that because it comes back and it can hurt someone. So please continue.
And how to identify a goal?
You also identified the problem in that.
Yeah.
Okay. Yes, we can see it especially from Pakistani youth perspective. Number one problem is career counseling. Unfortunately, we do not have. And before I move further, I have got to just, I've got to mention that one point which you started off with your topic by just mentioning some big names like Tony Robinson, Les Brown, and many others. Now just see, you can see one thing, like when they are before their audience, so you've got like 100 and 1,000 people sitting there, they've got the notebooks, they're going to jot them down, but in our part of the world, it's quite rare phenomena, okay? So there is this like one Harvard research which they conducted, almost time duration for this research is 10 years. So they asked MBA's students that did you ever set any target or have you got your goals? So the response was 3% of them, they had their written goals, 13% of them, they had their goals but they did not write them, and then remaining 84% didn't. They just continued with this research for 10 years, and after 10 years when they were asked that, okay now, so what they saw in that research, people who had written goals or at least they had something in their mind, they were very high achiever. So people who were not like very clear. So this is one very important aspect until unless we do not have goal. Now, in our part of the world, problem is when I talk about my career, so when we just started out with the school, like in our things are vague. Oh, you have got to become a pilot, you have got to become an engineer, and then children, they are very young, they're just going to nurture that dream and all that. So ultimately, when they're in matric, then there are like bad consequences, they're unable to get marks. These are the issues and problem. So we have got to prepare them right from the start so that, we just plan small goal. Initially, parents are there to goal, then the institutions are going to make it clear. Parents must have this like very clear idea that how to push children for their small goals. Then institutions, teachers, they should know that how we can prepare them for the small goals.
How to identify the goal in the first place, especially for the students out there? There's so many distractions nowadays for them. So making sure that you have a very set target. And you mentioned career counseling. I do believe career counseling is something else as compared to your goal, because a lot of people who pursue one career at one point in their life, they say, oh, this is not for me. And then they change that career altogether,
exactly.
right?
And I wanted to contribute to this as well because career counseling at times can go horrible for people. I've seen people being career counseled, ending up in Oxford and then eventually being a fashion model as well. I've seen them in my life. So imagine that people really need to be kind of sure about it. And so, I think to identify goals, this is a very simpler solution with me, and that is I might not have been able to think about goals and kind of talk about it while I was quite younger. But now I think that whatever I ask from Allah Almighty happens to be my goal. Allah me please ye kar de. Please, make us,
that's wonderful.
give us that ability, that capacity, that that we are able to achieve these things. So you're always thinking about something in your head at least. And that's where you very rightfully mentioned, it's the first time that I've seen somebody saying that either you've written them or either you have them in your mind is something which you will reflect upon, and that's really important.
Exactly, basically our unconscious mind, it's going to prepare us for all the tasks which we have got to do. So when we just identify, for example, all of us, when we just talk about generally goals, so we have got myriads of field, okay?
That's true.
We are not saying whether we are talking about students
Yes.
or professional
Yes.
or people who are in the mid-career or even the older people who have got still some goals. So, but if you just plan, I mean, whatever the task is, for example, for the students, they can say that, well, perhaps it's like attending your classes regularly, online or offline,
Yes.
or on campus, then there has to be a limit of the marks as well. For example, I have seen at university and colleges where people just come with these revolutionary ideas. Oh, come on, you don't need marks, you need skill. I always tell them, please do not listen to them.
Yeah.
Okay, for example, I tell my students very clearly that if you've got to, let's say, go to the foreign countries on scholarships, so please do not listen to these revolutionary guys who have not done anything in their own life, and they are telling you,
Yeah.
come on, straight A, this is the requirement.
Yeah,
If
exactly.
that's your target, please do not listen to them. Then we got like second category students who are like mediocre. We can tell them that, okay, just please work on your skill and all that. And ultimately, when we just look at various studies, we can see, for example, when we just look at people's education record, and if it shows like A's and
Yes,
B's,
yes.
it shows that the student has got many aspects which are really helping him a lot. And when this student goes into the practical life, all these aspects or this formula which he is carrying just to get all these marks, it's really going to help him to flourish in that market. as
Exactly,
well.
and in addition to that, sir, for children to understand it better, what I would want to say is that imagine that, your marks are actually a car, let's assume, you have the skill to drive a car, but imagine that if you do not have a car, you won't be able to drive it.
Yes.
So that's the predisposition, so this is something which happens to be a prerequisite of you being able to perform well. It's not that it will always give you a guarantee of that you will be successful in your
Yes.
life, no matter how many grades you achieve or how many accolades you get to your name. Obviously, it's going to come down from Allah Almighty, but this happens to be a prerequisite because it shapes your personality. It teaches you how to talk. It gives you soft skills. It makes sure
Yes.
that you know how to write a CV and emails. So it enables you. So this is where you're building your capacity. But for example, if somebody is so naive, unfortunately, that they're unable to figure out what their goal is in life, how do you think that they can prepare themselves? Because they certainly have no idea where their life is headed. There are two different mindsets. People go with the flow,
Yes.
number one.
Yes.
Number two, people, they break down bigger goals into smaller goals. They
Yes.
plan for next 5 years.
Yes.
Lekin hoga wahi jo uski marzi hai. Please.
When we just look at our as a nation, I do not want to say something like disappointing, discouraging early in the morning, because we have got like these two people
Wapis
who are
bhi
early
aati
in the
hai.
morning, like very fresh and all that. As a nation, that's a problem. Okay,
Yeah.
clarity. We've got like foggy ideas, and
Yeah.
still we are suffering. Just like one aspect.
And then we are
generally-
egoistic on top of that as well, with foggy ideas.
Exactly.
Asli
Second, when
chaudhary
it
ne.
comes to the people, you can just see, visit any organization, be it a school or corporate sector or even in your sector. And people who have got goals, they are different from the people who are like, they got their jobs, they are in their comfort zone and they are enjoying it. Now they are doing the percentage of the work where the bosses are not going to fire them, and they do not have something to achieve. So the achievers, they have got a very different psychology. I mean, perhaps they're just looking toward the next step. They are aligning themselves, they are improving themselves, and this really helps them. So the problem is, in our part of the world, in every organization, you can see that this is a dilemma that people they don't have. They've got like something like vague in their mind, and for this they do not have the proper tracks and all that.
Yeah.
So this is a problem.
But sir, the only fault over here is that imagine that that's how we are actually brought up. So imagine every time if
Yes,
I would not
maybe.
score well in my marks or in my examinations, I would go back with my report card to my father, and he would be like, you won't be able to succeed in life, number one. Number two, if you pass your examination with an average exam, then he'd be like, you're not going to land a good job, number two. Number three, so obviously they've been brainstorming us, to make sure that, we are going to land a job. That's how the preparation was. And towards the end, what they would say is that, God forbid, if you're not performing well, तुम्हें कोई नौकरी नहीं देगा, कोई बड़ा काम करो, do something big. And even then, those parents certainly do not have that idea कि वो बड़ा काम क्या है. So imagine, I think that's where people actually confuse themselves, because people do not know the right hierarchy. Now imagine when I went into television, I certainly never knew that, okay, I need to get my photo shoots done, send it to different agencies, and then the agency will shortlist, and then they will call me and whatnot. So imagine, I never knew even that, I need to get a photo shoot done. Or if I got my photo shoot done, I never knew the step 2, which was to kind of reach to another agency. Imagine that's where people actually, God forbid, fail or are unable to achieve their goals, because they're not able to break down their bigger goals into smaller goals, and that hierarchy really needs to be out there. How do you think anybody who has a goal can break them into shorter goals and know the right hierarchy, so that, okay, this is step 1, step 2, step 3, so that they can check it all?
Very good. This, like, you're just talking about a complete recipe or a complete package.
Formula.
They've got to get themselves familiar, for example, after having this goal, or then clarity. And then there is like all other aspect. For example, aligning yourself with the most powerful people of that industry. I mean, this at least not powerful, I would say, that at least who are there, who can just provide you a kind of insight. For example,
you need to be well connected. Yes.
Larry King, he said that when I was to become a host, and for that I just went there, I started living with my aunt, and many a time I went there, they said, come on, leave, do something else. But I just kept roaming around, and one day they said, okay, come in. Les Brown said, I was to become a jockey. Every day I was just a worker. My job was just to give them water and all that. But sometime I would pray that this guy is going to die. And, I mean, he would just go with this kind of passion that one day someone is going to die and I'm going to get a job. So one day that a seasoned jockey was not there, and he was just called. He said, come on, Les, join it. Okay, so the point is, at least do not sit somewhere else. Get familiar with that industry. People are going to guide you, that will these are the skill and all that. And then whatever normally you say, it's from Almighty Allah.
Exactly.
Yes.
You will find.
And also, Shahzad, so there's this debate between this destiny and determination. So if you are determined enough, I think Allah will make a way for you in order to find your path. But we're talking about the professional goals here, right? So how to break them down. And let's move on to the life goals, right? So how do you identify your life goals? And I think that there's a huge connection with the huge spirituality out there, right? So nowadays, I see there are a lot of, I would say, life coaching industry which is focusing on that. But unfortunately, they are not incorporating a very religious model into that, because it is mostly coming from the West, and Western models do not have that. They believe in a very hyper individualistic sort of a life. So when we talk about the life goals, how do you identify them?
Yes, like number one is, all of us, we just wish for this, like one of the big goals of the life, with, according to one of the theorists, when you've got the highest point of view, that what's your purpose in the world.
Yes.
How many people are going to achieve that? That's like one. But we can just, instead of going for that, we can just move on from the start. All of us, we have we are clear. For example, I'm in academia, so I know my targets. You are in this industry, you know your targets. But now, setting your goals and then just dividing them into like small parts and then just working for it. Yes, it really plays a very important role. Because until unless you're not going to identify, most of the people after finding job, they are into their like comfort zone. They do not want to move. So if you want to stay at the top of the industry, you have got to carry on with that formula. Until unless you're not going to identify, you're not going to move 1 or 2 steps further. So you are going to stay there. This is like something very important, because in every organization we can see.
But we have examples we have seen where people say that, okay, they have achieved their professional goals, or they have climbed to the higher echelons of their target, but still they're not satisfied with their life, because they feel there's something missing out there, and that something can be and that something can be derived from the higher spirituality or from the connection with Allah, because obviously if you achieve the highest echelon, so what's there next to conquer, right? But when you have that connection with Allah, so it gives you a moral way, a pathway where you can find out the purpose of your life, and it's not just this life, it's the life hereafter which also guides you according to that paradigm. that diamond framework. So make sure you incorporate that framework in your life, because it's very, very important, and that is ultimately going to be your anchor and your light in the darkness.
Exactly, because you certainly cannot behave like, if you want to be a high achiever, you know, you really need to focus on what I said, that, you know, you really need to be thoda sa khiska hua. And there's a reason why I'm saying that. Because no ordinary man and woman will actually go to the lengths that you've been to, what you have achieved, and always be thankful for whatever you've got. First, be thankful, and then the second step is to ask from Allah Almighty, ladies and gentlemen. Make sure that you focus on your goals. Make sure the formula is that you break your bigger goals into smaller goals. Look into the hierarchy of the characteristics of that one goal, what it requires from you. Make sure that you give it your best and leave the rest to Allah Almighty. Until next time, look after yourselves. 1, 2, 3.
Good morning.
Have a great day. Achieve your goals.